This week's World Religions materials address the Yoruba religion of West Africa and Voodoo, which is a hybrid religion devolved in part from the Yoruba religion, but also from Catholicism and various other indigenous influences in Africa and in the Americas. While we're studying this form of religion, Yoruba religion and the Voodoo derived from it, and hybrid religion maybe more generally, we're also going to look at the theme of demonization and the question as to whether we can evaluate, pass judgment upon aspects of one religion if we're viewing it essentially through the lens of another religion. That might sound very abstract. Specifically, we're going to look at the question as to whether it would be fair to look at a religion like Voodoo or Yoruba religion, and to note that in both of these cases, the religion involves communing with spirits, the belief that there exist disembodied supernatural beings with whom we can make communication and whom we can urge to help us in the affairs of life to be more successful. Seeking the help of spirits. We're going to look at this question and ask, would it be fair to say that this is dabbling with demons, that this is the occult? Because from a Christian point of view, and arguably from many Jewish and Islamic points of view, this would be seen as something very suspect, to try to enlist the help of a supernatural being other than God, if you consider God a supernatural being, because not all would, but to enlist the help of such an entity. Is this sinister, wrong, dangerous? So we'll begin with the video to give an overall impression of Yoruba religion in West Africa, where we see two American women travel to Nigeria, where their roots lie, and they undergo a ceremony to become priestesses, essentially, in Yoruba religion. And we'll hear about orishas that are seen as intermediaries, beings that mediate between God and humanity from the point of view of Yoruba belief. Yoruba religion does involve belief in a supreme God, but also these intermediary beings. They might be regarded as angels from a Christian and Abrahamic point of view, or demons. And is it fair to apply either of these terms? Can you really explore one religion using the language of another? Now, to some extent, that's inevitable. If one has a religious commitment or a secular commitment, if one identifies as atheist, it is impossible to view the study of another religion without that in some way impacting the way one sees the other religion. That's simply impossible. We can only see things from our point of view. We can try to inform our point of view, but we're still restricted to our point of view. And if religion means anything at all, it is a worldview. It's not just a hobby for one day a week or something. So it impacts everything. It impacts the way we see things, hopefully for the better. And hopefully an atheist would see their worldview as impacting the way they see things, also for the better. So we do see other religions through the lens of our worldview. That's inevitable. But can it become a problem? A simple example might be if people talk about the Quran as the Muslim Bible. Is that fair? Yes, it's a sacred text, but whereas the Bible is a library of texts written in very diverse cultures, in Asia, the Middle East, over 1100 years, 11 centuries. If we were to go back to the oldest texts of the Hebrew Bible and the newest text of the Christian New Testament, over 1100 years, obviously reflecting a great range of cultures and historical contexts and theological dispositions on the part of the authors. They didn't all have the same working model of God. It's a whole library, whereas the Quran represents, from a Muslim perspective, revelation from God through an angel to a given prophet in a cave of Mount Hira, granted over years, but still one angel revealing to one human. So I think we can regard the Quran as a book rather than as a Bible. So is it fair to say that the Quran is the Muslim Bible? And then there's the question of interpretation, in the sense that the Quran is, I think it's fair to say, seen by many Muslims as literally the word of God in the way it's dictated, whereas the Bible is inspired. It could be a much more nuanced way in which God influenced revelation. Well, all of that is to say, is it good to look at one religion from the standpoint of another and say things like the Quran is the Christian Bible, or maybe Ramadan is the Muslim Lent? Is it really an equivalent of Lent? Does it serve the same purpose in terms of devotion, and does it have the same theology? So when it comes to religions that involve communing with spirits, the Orishas in Yoruba religion and Lua in Voodoo religion, is it fair to use words like angel or demon in our interpretation of how people practice that in that religion? The materials raise the whole relationship between Eurocentric Christianity and Voodoo. It's complex. We'll include videos this week that talk about how Haiti is perhaps the only country to have successfully overthrown its European colonists, the French. And this overthrow of the colonists gave rise to a kind of, you might say, fallacy that the people of Haiti had communed with the devil, made a deal with the devil to help them expel the French. And because of this, the country is now in the grip of the devil. To the point of this idea that there was a ceremony involving the slaughtering of a pig, and the devil's help was enlisted. And this can give rise to the perspective that all of the ills that have befallen Haiti in terms of natural disaster, political instability, grinding poverty, environmental problems, all of this stems from selling the national soul to the devil. Voodoo, interestingly, while it reflects the West African religion brought to Haiti by slave people, also reflects Catholicism. And figures within Haiti can bear resemblance both to Christian saints, including the Virgin Mary, and to figures from indigenous African religion. So it's an indigenous religion, and it seems to have enjoyed a kind of, at least, non-adversarial relationship with Catholicism, because Catholicism has essentially been part of the hybrid religion itself. However, the relationship between Voodoo and evangelical Christianity has at points been much more troubled, because evangelical Christians have undertaken missionary work in Haiti, motivated by the belief that the country is in the grip of the devil and needs a kind of mass exorcism, that individual people are possessed by demons and the country as a whole, in a sense, is possessed by the devil. This may be a very sincerely held belief, and it may be animated by a very genuine desire to help people get out of grinding poverty and violence and all kinds of temporal and spiritual problems, and it may be well motivated. However, it has led, as I say, to missionary activity in Haiti, spearheaded by evangelical Christians who believe they're fighting the devil when they try to convert people from voodoo practices to evangelical Christianity. It raises that whole question about, is it fair to look at another religion and its attempts to deal with the supernatural world and say that this is dabbling with the demonic? You'll come to your own conclusion on that. Is it just a kind of spiritualized racism? Is religion seen as sinister and ominous just because it has roots in Africa or roots among people of color and outside of the Abrahamic tradition? It's not part of the Jewish, Christian, Muslim worldview. So is it fair to say there's a kind of racism there, or a kind of cultural imperialism God is on our side. God only reveals to people like us through our heritage and our tradition, couldn't possibly be speaking through a very different kind of religious tradition. On the one hand, there's that kind of awful intolerance, but you can defend it if you want to, of course. You can come up with good arguments. Um, but there's also, on the other extreme, perhaps an awful tolerance. Is every religion of the same value as another? Are they all just the same? Are they all just like ice cream flavors, where I like strawberry and somebody else like mocha ice cream, and neither one of us is objectively right or wrong? It's just taste. The problem with that is when we consider genuine religious cults or religions that espouse human sacrifice, or other practices that might be considered horrific, anything from female circumcision to inappropriate practices involving children or the subjugation of women. Can we say they're all equal? So is a pacifist Christian church, maybe Amish or Shaker or Quaker people, equal in worth and value with a violent cult? Do we have to sometimes be willing to make value judgments and say, this is more ethical than something else? Just because it's religious doesn't necessarily make it ethical in itself. So we can consider that also when we talk about how we view Yoruba religion and Voodoo religion and the tradition of communing with spirits. Navigate it yourself, and it'll be fascinating to hear your response in the discussion post. Thank you very much.